The list of cars that have more street presence than an ACR Viper is very short, and usually their price tags are followed by a ton of zeros, which is why it's so crazy that even in a collection like this, with all the limited edition Ferrari hypercars, the legendary status JDM cars, and all these crazy twin turbocharged big power builds, the Vipers are still some of the cars that get the most attention when we're out cruising on back roads or at local car meets. That is until 458 Destroyer's latest build hit the garage not that long ago that I want to show you today. And it's immediately apparent why the first time you get a chance to see one of these cars up close in person. Now, the Inthmoto car is just a GTS, whereas the Voodoo 2 is obviously an ACR, and it's really apparent to see even the GTS looks absolutely crazy. Now, it has a lot of parts added onto it from factory, but next to the ACR, you can definitely tell a lot of the changes, a lot of the aero changes that they made to the car, especially on the hood, all the additional vents on the fender, bigger canards, a huge front splitter, the carbon side skirts running the length of the car, the absolutely enormous rear tires, and of course at the back we have a gigantic rear diffuser because the Vipers are side exit exhaust. And then finally we have that signature ACR rear wing, which has to be one of the biggest rear wings fitted to any production car ever. Not even taking into account the twin turbocharged 2,000 wheel horsepower builds on these cars, they are absolutely wild. But I think the latest build from 458 Destroyer, which you may have seen on the channel once or twice in the backgrounds, I've alluded to it a little bit before, I think it may take things up a tiny notch. It's the Widebody AMG GT. Now, before we take the car out on the road, I do want to give two huge shout outs to the two shops who helped put this build together. First, Exotic Autosport up in Nashville, who did all of the engine build and power modifications, getting this car to a solid 1,000 wheel horsepower while still driving like stock. And then second, Alex's Custom Collision in Athens, Alabama, who did all of the paint and bodywork, installing this absolutely crazy kit. I know it wasn't easy. I know there was a ton of work that went into getting this kit to fit absolutely perfectly, but man, it could not have turned out better. This car looks insane. I'll leave a link down in the description below of both of those shops. Make sure you check them out to check out the other builds that they've done. I know they both do excellent work. I've got to say, this AMG turned out so impressive, and I know 458 Destroyer is super stoked on it. Now, for those of you interested, I'll go over the build real quick with it. Now, I'm actually gonna have to look up the Instagram post from Exotic Autosport because there's so much done to it, I can't remember it. But we'll take a look at the engine real quick and see what makes this 1,000 horsepower work. Essentially, it's just a Premier Tuning Group Stage 4 kit, which really just comprises of their turbo system, carbon inlets, split cooling system, race valves, high flow air filters, 3.5 to 3 inch catless downpipes, 3 inch catback system, a host of fueling mods, and then a light built transmission. And the pulls to make 1,000 horsepower were done with a full tank of 93 with just 5 gallons of ethanol blended in. This car is crazy. Even though you can't see a ton behind the plastics on the engine, there is a lot going on here. And speaking of a lot going on, Alex did a fantastic job with this Carbon Air wide body kit. And of course, 458 Destroyer got some custom AL13 wheels. Look at that, little red 458 logo on the rim. Just little details like that set the car apart. The wide body kit on this sets it apart so much from a stock AMG GT. If you follow IMSA racing at all, the AMG GT3s are some of my favorite cars out on track, and this really starts to get that look down, especially with this ginormous rear wing, which has a special party trick that you may have seen if you follow the channel. Make sure you check out the Instagram, but I'll show that in just a minute. We got to shut the lights off for it. Interior wise, this car is basically completely stock. Now, 458 Destroyer's idea with this car was really to build something that looks absolutely crazy from the outside, but keeps all of the comfort, drivability of a stock AMG GT. And I gotta say that with 1,000 wheel horsepower, this car does get super rowdy if you want to, but honestly, if you're just driving around like normal, it's no more difficult to drive than any other AMG Merc. But real quick, I'm gonna shut these lights off and show you guys something super cool with the rear wing. I gotta say, it definitely sounds like an AMG GT3. I do a lot of iRacing. If you guys do, let me know in the comments down below what your favorite type of racing is. We like to do sim racing in 458 Destroyer's garage. I know he likes it a lot, but this car sounds very similar to the AMG GT3 and like the IMSA series and stuff. which makes it feel really, really cool when you're driving down the road. Knowing what the car looks like just puts a smile on your face. And then of course, 1,000 horsepower doesn't hurt. Now, I'm not gonna go too crazy here on the back roads, again, because of the conditions, but also, like I said the last time I took out the SF90 Spider, we have had a few calls around the garage, so I don't wanna be too crazy, but the downshift sounds so good. God. This car is so cool. Dude. I do have to say, I wish the interior was a little bit more special. Now I know what the car looks like from the outside. It'd be cool to kind of do up the entire interior like an AMG GT3, but I get it. Livability, comfort. This car is basically bone stock on the inside, so I don't know what else to say. It drives just like an AMG GT. I mean, you could put it in just auto and just let it putt around. The car got built at Exotic Auto a long time ago, so I had the chance to drive it around in stock form. So the car looked bone stock, stock wheels, stock tires, all that stuff, but it made 1,000 wheel horsepower. That car, it wasn't quite as much fun because it just didn't hook ever. It just blew the back tires off. All it would do is just smoke the back tires. Now with these bigger tires, it feels like it hooks a lot better. These aren't the best conditions in the world right now at the moment, but it still feels like it hooks a whole heck of a lot better than it did on the factory size tires. Again, like they're nowhere near rated for 1,000 horsepower. This is something about the collection that I'm so fortunate to be friends with 458 Destroyer and have the chance to do all this stuff. The collection is so diverse. There's so much just different driving experiences. The BAC Mono, gonna make a video on that soon. There's all the Ferraris, there's the twin turbocharged V10 cars like the Performante and the R8 GT and stuff like that. The Nismo T1 GTR. Like, there's so many different, like, depending on what mood you wanna drive in. And this, if you're in an angry mood, you pick the AMG GT. Well, that's all I really have for this video. There's not much else to say about the AMG GT other than it turned out awesome. The car drives phenomenal, it makes a ton of power, and of course, it looks absolutely insane. I want to give one more shout out back to Exotic Autosport up in Nashville and Alex's Collision here in Athens, Alabama. It did such a phenomenal job putting the car together, getting the car running right, and also looking the way that it does. I'm super stoked that I finally get to drive the car. It's been in the collection for a long time. And so that's what I'm gonna do. If you're new to the channel, what's up? My name is Charlie. I make content with the cars across the social platforms, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you check them out if you haven't already. And with that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. I'm just gonna get back to driving this ridiculous car before it starts pouring rain. Try to get a couple hits in, right?